Welcome into our very first live podcast here on the Rounding Third Baseball Podcast. Today we got Sean and Harrison again. How you boys doing today?
Good, bud. How are you?
Great.
Awesome. We are very excited to be live tonight, and going forward, we're going to be live every week. So just make sure to like the Facebook page, Rounding Third Baseball Podcast, and subscribe on YouTube. We want to thank everybody for their support from last week's first episode. We had 132 views and we had 14 people subscribe. So just the amount of support and the kind words that I got from everybody really meant a lot. So we want to thank you.
Yeah, and if you are watching or join, feel free to chat. We like to interact a little bit with the viewers. Have some fun.
Awesome. So we're going to start off with yesterday. Red Sox Nation got the news that Jerry Remy's passed on with his 7th bout of cancer. He was the epitome of what Red Sox baseball was and has been, renowned league-wide. But our condolences go out to Remy family. Yeah, I mean, so many memories that I have of him as a Red Sox fan. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, not much to say that hasn't already been said. It's funny. I was talking to my brother yesterday about it, and he's like, it's almost like Remy in a weird way was like an extension of your family. Like he was in your living room every night, and then our generation. I mean, the guy was a broadcaster for over 30 years for the Red Sox. So it's kind of obviously I didn't know the guy personally, but just I feel like probably hit every part of Red Sox Nation a little bit on a personal level, even if you didn't know him.
Right.
Even
across the major leagues.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I said yesterday on Facebook, there's an entire generation, maybe even two, that he was the voice of the Red Sox. He was the Red Sox. I mean, he's who we listened to every night, and every memory of that team I have, as a kid and young adult, was I hear his voice, describing the event, and it's really, that's what sticks.
And I mean, how much does it take to go out and throw that first pitch in the Red Sox playoff game this year?
Was that 2 weeks ago?
He knew.
Like 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
Yeah,
that was his goodbye.
Absolutely, man. Just incredible. I mean, there's so much we can say. I mean, but our condolences go out to the Remy family.
For sure.
All right, so leading off tonight, we are going to go over our World Series update here. And it has been up and down all over the place. What are you guys thinking about this?
I mean, I'll tell you, last week, the prediction I had Houston in 7, but only because I wanted Atlanta to make it close. And then Atlanta goes up 3-1, and I'm like, oh, this is like, I'll be pumped if they win in 5. Like, I want Atlanta to win. And then, Houston does Houston things last night. And, now I feel like my Houston in 7 prediction is probable, not just possible, but probable.
Yep.
It's hard. I mean, we were saying it, the Atlanta staff, the bullpen, the pitching staff overall is probably overperformed at this point in the postseason up to this. They showed a graphic last night that the bullpen was 7-1 in the postseason, right? They'd won 7 consecutive home games, something like, crazy numbers like that. Like, you have to pull those things off to win a World Series. But you also knew that this Houston lineup is nasty. To be able to move Gurriel up to 5, move Bregman down to 7, and really kind of Altuve is the guy that you can't let that guy get on base, whether it's errors, whether it's walks, whether it's big extra base hits. Like, it doesn't matter. You can't let that guy set the table. And
or hit a bomb to dead center.
Well, true. But even less than that, though, like, letting this guy battle a 6-pitch walk, like, gets that entire lineup going. Everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's the right guys woke up for Houston. And I think that's got to scare you as a Braves fan. Like, that's got to scare you.
And absolutely, and just so that it goes back to last week, what I said about the bullpen throwing too many innings. This is where the analytics are starting to come back and hurt, right? Like you said last week too. Like, we can talk about analytics until we're blue in the face, but the Braves bullpen have thrown all but 7 innings this entire series. So these hitters have made the adjustments. The Astros are too good to see the same pitchers game after game after game. They're gonna get to them eventually. And right now, like with Morton out, I'm with you. I think it's Houston taking both games back home.
Yeah, I still feel good about my pick of Braves in 7. I think they're going to find a way to. I do think if Houston stays warm, maybe not hot, but warm like they have been, I think they'll take Game 6, and then it's going to be an all-out battle for 7. And I think the guts and the grit of that Braves team may help them prevail. But I am worried about the Astros now. Bregman moving down to 7 took the monkey off his back. He seemed to loosen up a little bit. That lineup started to come back together. To your point, Sean, that offense is dangerous if they're rolling. And if they were scuffling a little bit there for a few games, the Braves snuck in and got some leverage there. But you can't keep that team down for long, and the Braves are going to have to gut one out here in Houston.
It's exactly what Houston did to the Red Sox.
Yep.
Like the offense was a little bit kind of scuttered early on, and then they see pitchers a couple of times. They get themselves kind of, I don't know what kind of kick in the ass they need, but whoever needs to deliver the speech delivers the speech, and then they're just a different team. They ambush you. Like you can't make a single mistake on the mound because you just get ambushed. Maldonado, like what's Maldonado doing coming up with the game like he had last night? Like that's not. It was great. I mean, but that's not his game.
Right, he's an 079 hitter.
But they needed a guy to step up, and he stepped up. But that's a team like that. It's a team that wins. Like they have the right. It's something about the chemistry, and I don't know. But they're a scary team.
And Fox put out the graphic, or they said the stat last night that there hasn't been a World Series clinched at home since the 13 Red Sox. That's crazy. I couldn't believe that.
I still kind of, even though I saw it and I looked it up, I still don't believe it.
Right.
Like that's insane.
But,
it's a weird stat. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think, honestly, I think the Braves are in trouble. Like, I want the Braves to come through, but if this Houston team and lineup has woken up, the Braves are in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I look the Astros to me are almost like the Patriots. They've been to the playoffs so many times. They've been there. They've been together for so long. They've been here so many times. The game's not too big. They're going to calm down and settle right in. The Braves are not as experienced. They're not as deep. So I think everything's in the Astros' favor. I just for some reason like the grit of this Braves team. They remind me of the Red Sox, kind of us against the world. And I love Jock Peterson's comment of maybe we're the MFers that'll be able to do it, because nobody thinks they can. I think that's what they need. They need that chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. I mean, again, the classic, anything can happen in Game 7, right? Like any basketball, baseball, hockey, any sport that has a Game 7, anything can happen in a Game 7. Yep. I think what you got to worry about is the Astros have played in their share of Game 7s.
Oh yeah.
Like that's something like that is not going to phase the Astros. So you just have to make sure you play within yourself. I think if it goes to Game 7, which I think it will go to Game 7, I think the Braves have a chance, but I'd still put my money on Houston.
Yep.
And I think this series doesn't come down to pitching. It's going to be a slugfest. These last two games are going to be an absolute slugfest, and the team that hits the best in the clutch, or those 2-out hits that we like to talk about, the team that does that the best, then I think they're the ones that prevail.
Yeah, there are times I wonder if Dusty Baker's even awake, and then there's times he makes moves, and I go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And the same with Snitker. He's old school. He's not a data guy. He's working on feel of the game.
Yeah. I like Snitker. I do. And I texted you guys during the Ian Anderson game, took him out with the no-hitter, and I said, for the record, I disagree with this. However, I thought about it like throughout the night, and then the next morning, I'm like, you know what? I still, on the record, would disagree with it because I'm not going to go against my initial. But I think Snitker has such a good feel for that team.
Yep.
Like he knows his players, he knows how to get them to perform. He knows kind of when a guy like Anderson. He only had 76 pitches at the time, or 77,
which through 5 is a little bit elevated.
Yeah,
I mean, he had a lot of deep counts.
It was only like 50% strikes.
Yeah.
Right.
But he looked like he had 6 in him.
He did, but that's where though if you know your guys and if you know your club and if you know your bullpen, which he's used them masterfully up until this
Mhm.
point of the postseason, and if you know that the guy you're going to does better with a clean inning than he does with a guy on base,
Yep.
then you got to bring him in to start the inning,
Agreed.
Absolutely.
right? Like if you know that, like what's the for a guy that's only thrown 50% strikes, like you can't risk a leadoff walk and then you bring in a guy who's not good with runners on base. Now it's a
Right.
whole clusterfuck. Like if you
Yep.
know that, so that's why I feel like Snitker. I disagree with it at the time and whatever. But I do think he's he has a good feel, and I do think he kind of is willing to take that flow of the game and feel for his team above the analytics. So I like him even more because
I
the
I
analytics
also
are
said that move wasn't going to necessarily hurt them that game, right? It's
agreed.
just, you get a couple more innings out of Anderson, which means it's a couple more innings the bullpen doesn't have to throw, which limits their exposure to the Astros hitter. So now that they've had 2 full games to the Astros hitters, plus whatever the exposure they got to the other 3, the Astros have seen these guys and they're going to sit back, they're going to pick out the pitch they want, and they're going to put them in the Crawford boxes. That's just how it's going to happen.
Yep. Yeah, there's no at Game 6. There's no surprises anymore. They've all seen everybody in the bullpen at least probably twice. There's no surprises on either side now. Now it's just a matter of who can go out there and execute 9 innings of baseball.
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing too. That's what we said. It's going to be lineup versus lineup because,
Yep.
like you had said, Aris, it's no surprise on either side. Like Houston doesn't have any cards to pull as far as these bullpen guys that no one's ever seen either. I mean, it's just going to be it's going to be lineup versus lineup. I'm kind of excited for it because those are fun games. But
Yeah,
It should be
absolutely.
fun.
All right, we'll revisit it next week when
Yeah.
we find out who wins. I mean, I was kind of hoping for the Braves to win last night, so then it was just kind of over and we could talk about it tonight, but, well, it didn't work that way.
And we
So,
could celebrate the demise of the Astros.
yeah, right. But we'll have to wait another week.
whether Houston wins or loses this series, that demise ain't happening anytime
No,
soon. I'm
they'll be
sorry to
around
break
for
it
a
to
while.
you.
You're right.
I think so. That's not exactly murderer's row of divisions in the American League
No.
West. I don't think
No.
they're going to be concerned for a little while here.
Yeah.
I bet they're really happy
Absolutely.
they came back to the AL now.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah. All right, awesome. So we are going to move on to our 5th inning showdown here. And we are going to discuss whether or not we believe if Shohei Ohtani had the best season ever in Major League Baseball history. Who would like to start off with this one?
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so
You
you
want me
started,
to
Nick.
start?
Yeah, you started.
All right. So
I've been itching to do this one for like 2 weeks, dude. Go ahead.
So I have the unpopular opinion where I don't think he did. So yes, both sides of the ball. He had great power numbers. Offensively, pitching, he was okay. So here are the stats. We got 46 home runs, 100 RBIs, 26 steals, but he hit 257. Pitching, he had a 3.14 ERA, 156 Ks, and 130 innings. So, I mean, we all know he throws triple digits or whatever. Has pretty good stuff, and the power numbers are there. There's just so many other standout seasons that I think were just completely dominant that, like, I don't look at Shohei Ohtani and say he completely dominated the entire league. So, like, for instance, this season by Bob Gibson, he had a 1.12 ERA with 13 shutouts. He won the Cy Young and the MVP. That's just one example. I have Sandy Koufax was 27-9 with a 1.73 ERA, 323 innings with 317 Ks, 27 complete games in that season. I mean,
Different
it's
game
just
back then, but no, not to
it
take anything
is,
away
but
from either
it's
one of
just
those guys.
but it's just so dominant that I don't
Yeah.
think, like, I don't look at Ohtani right now and say he completely dominated baseball. Whereas in, like, Sandy Koufax that year probably dominated the entire league.
Yep.
Like, that's how I look at it. Did Ohtani have an incredible season? For sure. Do I think it's the best ever? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's probably more of a middleman Dan answer, and it's probably more fair to break it up in like different sections of baseball. Like the games have changed, and not just baseball, but like every sport, it just evolves crazy levels over certain periods of time.
Right.
I think what Ohtani did this year compared to, like, let's say our lifetime of watching baseball. So I was born in 90. I know you guys were what, mid to late 80s, right? Because you guys are just a couple years older than I am. So from when we started watching baseball, it's probably as good of a season as we've probably seen, considering that this guy was a pitcher hitter in the American League, but didn't pitch every 5 days. Like, he was kind of like, he only threw, what was it,
130
15
innings.
30.
130.
Okay, sorry. In 153 Ks, is that what you said the number?
156, yeah.
156 innings. Okay. So 130 innings. We're not talking about Sandy Koufax just 300 and whatever innings. We're not talking about, I'm sure Bob Gibson was right up there with those number of innings in that season too, right? So he's
Right.
throwing half the number of innings, but his K numbers are up there. The swing and miss stuff is ridiculous. I mean, what this guy does when he's on the mound, the swing and miss stuff it's not just the triple digits. I mean, the triple digits obviously helps, but it's not just the triple digits.
It's a splitter. It's a slider.
Oh, it disappears, dude.
Yeah.
He could do the whole page on. I'm throwing it 3 times. You're not going to touch it.
Yeah.
He can tell you what's
It's
coming.
just-
You won't hit it.
You're not going to come close. You're not going to come close. And I think offensively, the 257 is, it's not a great average. Like, he doesn't hit for a great average. It's not what he does. But 100 RBIs on a team that is not very good and doesn't get a ton of guys on base. So, like, he makes those. I would love to know what his, and I probably should have looked it up to prepare myself for this. But I would love to know what his batting average and on-base percentage is with runners in scoring position and with 2 outs. Because to get that number of RBIs with that number of home runs on a team like that, like, you got to come through in the clutch. Like, you're not a guy that hits 250 with guys in scoring position.
Unless they're just all 2-run shots after a single.
Yeah.
I mean,
what are the odds? I mean, I'm sure. I guess that's an option, but I doubt that.
You're not hitting a lot of 3-run home runs in that lineup, that's for sure.
That's exactly right. So I mean, the guy's getting up with guys on base. He comes through. The stolen base to me is probably as telling of a stat as really the pitching numbers. I mean, this guy's a threat on the base pass.
Yeah.
and a game that we don't steal anymore.
Best season of all time, probably not, because I mean, you just those 2 examples you showed, Nick, are just disgusting numbers. But I do think if you split it up, like, I think it's got to be up there in the argument. And again, just my last point, then I can throw it over to Harrison here. But to come over from Japan, where their whole development of playing baseball is different. Like, you see it with the Japanese pitchers that come over. Like, Daisuke, I mean, how frustrating was Daisuke to watch as a Red Sox fan? Like, just as an example, like, these guys pitch away from contact. Their whole thing is, fastball count, off-speed pitch. 0-2, I'm going to try and, blow you. Like, everything's away from contact. So for him to be able to come over here, what's the 2nd year in the league, to be able to come over here and adjust so quickly, to be able to hit the North American pitching, and maybe not the average isn't there, but the power's certainly there. And his ability to get on base when it matters is certainly there. I just think that's really impressive. And he's a young kid. Like, he's only going to get better. And I do think if he continues to improve the way he improved in 2 years, I think that average is going to climb with the power numbers not suffering. Like, I think this kid's going to be a legitimate. I mean, he's an MVP candidate this year, no doubt. But I think he's going to be a perennial, legitimate MVP contender, especially if he can get out of that franchise.
I mean, I completely agree. I think he had an amazing season. I just, like I said, I just don't think it's the best season ever.
That's fine. And I'll give you that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would for sure tip my hat to a guy who can be a major league hitter and pitcher. That's incredibly difficult. And I also, to argue against myself for a moment, he's on a bad team. He didn't have Trout for half the season, so really he had no partner in crime in that lineup. Rendon's he's a nice little gap to gap guy, but he's not scaring any pitcher to make them pitch to Ohtani.
Jared Walsh also broke through, though. Jared Walsh had himself a great year.
He
did, but he's not Mike Trout, for sure.
No one's Mike Trout except for maybe Nick Arno.
Well, obviously, nobody hits dingers like Arno, but no. So you look at it, here's a guy who's really kind of playing with one hand tied behind his back. Not having Trout, bad team, no real support. However, is it super impressive? Absolutely. I'm amazed by a guy that can be both an effective major league hitter and pitcher. And for him to be way beyond effective and actually, excel is even more amazing to be able to do both. But what I think you end up with when you have somebody doing both is you got a guy who threw 130 innings. So what that does is creates a little bit of chaos in the rotation because you can't count on him. You got a guy who's out there swinging a bat with a sore shoulder for a day or two, or limited to DH, or can't play the field. And I think it actually puts limitations and restrictions on the team because you've got to work around this weird schedule. And he's also dividing his attention. You think about the life of a pitcher. You know, you've got game day, then you've got your rest days, you've got your various sessions you go through, throwing, stretching, muscle building. You've got your studying of the other team, but in the meantime, he's also taking BP and he's in the outfield shagging balls and getting ready to also study the pitchers so he can hit. I feel like you got a guy who's good. He's really good at both, but he's not great at either. His numbers, 46 homers and 100 RBIs are great. 257 average. All right. The guy's up there. He's all or nothing. You got a guy on the mound who's effective but not consistent and not reliable. I think you end up with a watered down version of Shohei Ohtani as a offensively and on the mound. You don't get 100% of him on either. So what I question is is he more valuable just picking one and sticking with it than trying to do this whole back and forth, which I think actually in some ways could hurt the organization trying to work around what he can handle. But he's an absolute physical freak.
Oh, absolutely. I just don't understand why a National League team didn't he didn't sign with a National League team. Right. Wouldn't that have made the most sense?
Yep.
I think Ohtani would love the idea, and I don't know if it was him, his agent, both, combination, don't know. But I think to have the idea, the opportunity, the option to DH. I mean, this guy DH'd quite a bit. Yep. It's not like he was pitching or playing in the field. You go to a National League club, that's your option. Your option is you're on the mound or you're in the diamond. You have the option to DH to go.
Yeah, you can hide him at DH.
That's true.
Just to play devil's advocate to Harrison, not that because I agree with pretty much everything you said, but just to, while dividing his attention and while not fully being able to study pitchers he's going against and hitters he's going against, guy still hit 46 bombs, drove in 100 runs on a terrible team, and still had over, he was 130 something innings with 150 something strikeouts. So I don't disagree. You do get a lot of a watered down type, but this watered down Ohtani's fucking nasty.
Yeah,
he's still really, really good.
Yeah.
So I think where does he give his best value? I say right now, doing exactly what he's doing, because again, you have it does throw some chaos, 100% into your 5-man rotation, right? Because he's throwing some, and then he's out of the rotation, and then he's in the rotation, and then he's out, and it's kind of chaos. But if you get that down, early on, and kind of the rest of the rotation's fine with it, I don't know why people are beeping outside my window, but it's driving me nuts.
They must be listening, and they love what you're talking about.
This guy's a secret weapon. You come up, you get yourself in a division series against the Astros. You can throw this guy in. Houston's not prepared for him. He's not supposed to be in this 3-game series. All of a sudden you got, I don't know. I just think it presents possibilities. And I'm just more of a glass half full guy than a glass half empty. I look at the possibilities that presents rather than the negatives.
I would love to see this guy as an everyday right fielder or DH and just hit and see what he does. I don't think he's got enough value to stay a pitcher long term. I think this was a fun experiment to sell tickets and draw some attention to the guy. But I think long term he's definitely going to be a right fielder because he's got a cannon for an arm. And an everyday hitter. I'd love to see what the guy can do if he just focused and you got 162 or 145, focused games out of him. What those numbers would look like if he wasn't trying to run to the bullpen and then go take BP and all this other stuff. I wonder how much better he'd be.
He's coming off Tommy John too.
Yeah, true.
How many innings does he have left? We don't know. All these guys that throw triple digits, your arm is not made to bend backwards all the way and touch your own hip with it. It's just not.
Yeah. I
don't know.
I'd rather see them use him as a 1-inning bullpen guy, and you can kind of shuffle the lineup around to slide him in the pitcher spot and sub out somebody else, or as a closer or something to let it rip. I just don't think he's going to hold up trying to go 5, 6, 7 innings more than 8 or 10 times a season.
I wonder how much of it is him. I wonder how much, like, does he just love pitching? And again,
Maybe.
the Angels would have to know that before they go and
Sure.
bring him in and make him part of the organization. But I wonder, like, is it him being like, you know what, this is what I want? Like, it's not what the organization's making me do. Like, I love pitching. Like, I always want pitching to be a part of my game. And if that's the case, this is probably what his career is going to be. You know, how willing is he to give that pitching up to say, you know what, I'm just going to be that guy that plays right field and just mash his homers and just launch pad every
So I was just going to ask that question. So if he is forced to give one up, does he give up hitting or does he give up pitching? And which one should he pick?
I mean, he should give up pitching, right? I mean, like,
absolutely.
To be that kind of an everyday threat in a lineup. And again, we talk about the stolen bases. This guy at this point can hit 2 through 6 in any order,
right?
And be a real valuable piece of it.
And he can run.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so he can really, you can get him at the top of the order, get on base, really, you know, create some havoc for the defense while your power hitter. Well, he's not a power. As if he's not a power hitter, he is. But you know, you can use him. I mean, again, does he love pitching? Like, is this like his passion pitching? Because if that's the case, he's never going to give it up.
No, but it'll be interesting down the road what he does.
Theoretically, like, it'd be an idiot to give up the offense.
Could you imagine him hitting like 2, Trout hitting 3, somebody else in the 4 hole? I mean, could you imagine a guy like that getting protection and getting on base and wreaking havoc while a guy like Trout is up?
And then him and Trout's speed on the bases too, like back to back. Like,
they would cause chaos, but you know, you've got to put a few more pieces around them. But if you could have those guys go 2-3 or 3-4 and have like real speed and guys that are real threats there together, that's what Trout's always been missing. He finally has it, and he you know, for the first time goes down injured for a big chunk of the season. But those two together for a whole season could be a hell of a lot of fun to watch.
What the Angels really need to do is blow up their entire pitching staff and start over.
Yeah.
They never seem to have good starting pitching or even pitching in the bullpen, I guess. I mean,
no.
Who was their number 1 this year? I couldn't even tell you.
No, I don't think they could either.
Dylan Bundy, maybe? Like, seriously.
He did pitch opening.
You're right.
Like,
I think he's technically the one.
And he was like the 4th starter on the Orioles a couple of years ago. Like, I mean, come on.
Not the good Orioles, for the record.
Yeah,
not the good
right. No.
I mean, they got to do something with that pitching staff. And Ohtani's not the answer. Like you said, he pitches once every, 15 days maybe?
Yeah.
Like, he's a spot starter. I mean, a nasty spot starter, but
sure.
And it's a good luxury to have, but you can't rely on that to be your guy.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. No, I agree.
All right. Well, that gets us.
So are we unanimously saying not the best season ever?
Yes, I think so. I think it's not the best season. But again, I think I've made my case. I think if you split baseball up into kind of sections of history, I think our kind of generation, you might be able to make a case for. I still think you could make stronger cases for other people, but I think you can make a case for Ohtani in our generation. I'm sorry?
Said Pedro.
Well, again, that's the first one that pops into mind, right?
Yeah.
that was a dominant season. But
99 Pedro was freakish.
Okay. So that's what I was going to say. Up until Barry, like, we're only talking about starting pitchers to play 1 out of every 5 games. The fact that Ohtani's in there pitching 1 out of, let's say, 12 or 15 games, but he's in the lineup, and he's like, that's kind of where the value comes. That's where kind of what those other guys didn't have. Like, Sandy Koufax did what Sandy Koufax did. Bob Gibson did what he did. Pedro did what he did by playing 1 out of every 5 games. Not to diminish it because it was nasty, but, you know, 4 out of every 5 games, they're sitting there in their slippers. Like, so
playing golf,
putting the offensive numbers up while also doing what he did in only 130 something. I just think it's really impressive because it's something we haven't really ever seen before.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of those old time pitchers could hit. Like Bob Gibson could hit, but he still wasn't Shohei Ohtani. Like, I mean, let's just call it how it is.
Yeah.
But
and we do have a comment here, Nick. We got some agreement here.
Yeah. So Morgan says it might be the most impressive. It wasn't the best on either side. Yeah. I mean,
I agree.
It's exactly what we're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Super impressive, but not the best season ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Morgan.
Guys, I said it last week, right? I said it last week. Rod Carew won a batting title without hitting a home run. I think, to me, that's he hit like 370 something in 1972. He hit a single home run.
Yeah,
Like
it's
to
insane.
do that is almost a better season, if you will, than Ohtani hitting 350. 250 with 100 RBIs.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It goes on how you look at the game, how you approach it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
absolutely impressive for sure.
Yeah. Same here from Nicholas. I think we're all in agreement. It was really impressive, but not the best season ever.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So moving on to our 7th inning stretch, we're going to do our awards predictions here. Our Cy Young, our MVP, Rookie of the Year, and Manager of the Year. So Cy Young awards, we'll start with Harrison. You got yours?
Yeah, sure. So my AL Cy Young award, I feel like this one is hard because there's really only one guy in each league that I feel like was really that dominant. You got other guys had really good seasons, but I think when you look across it, it was Robbie Ray was absolutely lights out, and he was terrible last year. I mean,
that's
awful,
my big thing too. Yeah,
awful. He was so bad last year.
Yeah.
Was this his first year or second year in Toronto? Because he came from Arizona, right?
Right.
Did
Yeah.
he split time?
He did.
He might have came over on the trade deadline last year.
He was like a fire sale. Get out of town. He was so bad, and here he is. He's clearly to me the AL Cy Young. And then in the NL, it's Wheeler. I mean, his season was lights out. And again, a team that was on the cusp, not great, but they would have been in the basement if that guy hadn't had the season he had.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have many surprises. I think Nick's frozen here. I don't think we're going to have any surprises on the Cy Young. Harrison, I'm with you on that. So let's do Nick.
Oh, great connection.
He's back.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was just agreeing with Harrison. I don't see any surprises really on the Cy Young. I mean, Garrett Cole had a nice season for the Yankees. I mean, he did, but does he upseat Robbie Ray for the Cy Young? I don't think so.
So I have a different NL.
Oh, so real quick, anybody else feel like Garrett Cole's numbers kind of fell off when they really cracked down on the sticky substances? Anybody else feel like he tailed off?
A little bit,
just saying.
For sure.
I mean,
just saying.
I do. I mean, I think there's, but NL, I think, Walker Buehler had a really good year.
Mm-hmm.
Urias had 20-something wins, 20 wins, 21 wins.
Yep.
So, I mean, you could kind of, I think, make cases for those guys. Scherzer was pretty good. It's kind of weird that he was kind of traded because he went from that terrible team to the Dodgers, but then so I don't know. I think the NL, there could be better cases to be made. I don't think the American League really has much of a case.
Yeah, no, I have Robbie Ray, but I have Corbin Burns for the NL.
That's a good pick.
Okay.
So he was
had a really good. He had a great start.
11-5, 2.4 ERA. He had 234 Ks and only 34 walks. He only walked 34 people all year. That's crazy.
Do you remember, Nick? We had that text going back and forth every 5 games when he started. What was it? How many consecutive strikeouts before he had his first walk of the season?
It was.
Wasn't it some crazy number like that?
It was like, it was. I can't even remember the number.
I can't remember
what something unfathomable.
I should have been more prepared, but it was insane. And I remember we kept texting back for like another 5 Ks before, like he just didn't walk guys.
No, I mean that's crazy. That's crazy. His whip was 0.94. Yeah, his whip was 0.94. No, where the average is over 1.
I think what's definitely going to hurt him in that is the 11 wins.
Yeah, again, absolutely.
Wins for a starting pitcher are not just on the starting pitcher, no doubt about that. But I think history will tell you that lack of wins screws you because you look at Roger Clemens got snubbed like 3 times in his career. He had like a sub-2 ERA, but only had 14 wins, 13 wins. Yep. You had guys with 20. Was it Chris Carpenter for the Cardinals? Had like 26 wins one year. But he had like a 3.5 ERA, but he had 26 wins, so he got the Cy Young. So I think the 11 wins is going to hurt Burns, but I think he had an awesome year. And
I love Burns. How many of those are his fault? He could have been a 20-game winner, but the Brewers just didn't have the lead, or they gave up the lead after he came out. I
don't disagree.
Yeah, the wins is such a stupid stat when it comes to that because they could dominate for 7 innings. Right, 7 innings, and then the bullpen comes up and they give it up. It's a tie game, and then they win in the bottom of the 9th, and he gets a no decision. Like, cool, thanks for your 7 innings and 12 Ks, but you get a no decision.
Here's a big cup of nothing for your effort.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
But what's amazing
man.
is so Burns led the league in ERA, strikeout rate, home run rate, and he was second in walks. But
Only
11
who had
wins,
less
and he
walk-
threw like
who led
40
the league in
fewer
walks?
innings.
Yeah. Who
Someone
led
had
the
less
league?
walks than him.
Somebody, oh sorry, walk rate, not walks. Walk rate. He had the
Oh,
fewest
okay.
walks. Yes,
Oh,
sorry.
goodness
Sorry.
gracious.
Yeah, no. He
My
led the league in
goodness.
walks. My apologies. Second in
you're
walk
good.
rate because he threw 40 fewer innings than a lot of these guys,
Right.
so it all kind of evens out.
Man. Yeah, so Doug says, I can see the comments on my side too. It said Felix Hernandez won it with a 500 record.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
True.
yeah.
He did.
So, I mean, it just happens. But you're right. I mean, they do look at the wins for sure. And it's stupid.
Yeah,
I don't think they
there's
should.
examples of guys with, but I'm just saying, like, history will tell you, like,
Yeah.
the voters, they're going to look at wins and probably give it more weight than an ERA or than a WHIP.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but
Absolutely. All right. Moving on to MVP. What's our pick for MVP here?
Why don't you go on this one, Sean?
I mean, I think Ohtani for the American League. I just
No
think we
brainer.
talked ad nauseum here about the season that he had.
Yeah.
I just don't know what to add. I mean, you can make cases for other guys, certainly. I just think what he did on that team in that lineup without Trout for half of it still rakes in 100 RBIs, 46 bombs, and it'd be able to still throw 130 something innings, 157 strikeouts.
Yeah.
And it's a respectable ERA. Not great, not terrible, but a respectable number for an ERA for a guy that threw 137 innings, or I don't know why I can't remember that number.
Is it respectable even in the AL West though? Question mark.
I mean, listen. The crazy thing, like we can dump all over these divisions, and I mean, rightfully so. It's not a great division, but those guys get paid a lot of money to play baseball. They're very good.
Absolutely.
I still think that's a good number, a respectable number.
Oh, it is for sure.
National League, Soto. I mean, Soto's just so good, and he's so
It's
young.
scary.
He's like 7 years old. He's so good. He shouldn't be this patient and disciplined of it. He will extend the zone every now and again, but everyone does. He is such a good hitter for being so young and getting nothing to hit. He never gets pitches to hit because why would you pitch to him?
Especially the last 2 months of the season. He's got Schwarber's gone and Trey Turner's gone,
yeah.
and he's got no one to protect him.
Nobody. He had the three of us were the three people hitting behind him. He got nothing.
Well, that's a pretty good lineup. What are you saying?
Yeah,
and I didn't get my paycheck, so what happened there?
I think you look at the numbers, and the numbers don't jump off the page. Be like, wow, that's no doubt an MVP season. I get that, but I just think you take into consideration where he was playing, the team he was playing for, the competition he was going against, and the fact that he got nothing to hit, still put those numbers up. I go with him.
Yeah. I think Harper's gonna get it. Bryce has been kind of the face of baseball until Tatis came along. I mean, it's a writer's popularity contest, right? I mean, that's kind of how it rolls down to. But Harper hit 309, 35 homers, only 85 RBIs. Again, who's on base for him? And then, you said earlier, Sean, 100 walks, but you're not going to pitch to Bryce Harper with the lineup around him. Who's he got to protect him? Reese Hoskins?
Oh, yeah.
Andrew McCutchen, he's 38 now.
100 walks is 100 walks, right? I mean, it's 100 times that you're on base. So
75 are intentionally unintentional.
And so, you take 100. I'm not shitting on 100 walks, but, taking into consideration, there probably a lot of them are probably 4 or 5 pitch walks. It'd be one thing if he's just putting up, just nut crunching at bat, 9 pitch walks every time. That's impressive.
Right.
More impressive. 100 walks is still 100 walks.
Yeah. And then obviously Ohtani. I mean, Vlad Guerrero Jr. had an incredible season, and he's going to be there perennial every year, just like his dad was. I mean, it is what it is. Vlad Guerrero's not going anywhere anytime soon. That kid can straight out mash, but you just can't compete with what Ohtani did. I mean, wasn't the best season ever, like I said, but you just can't.
we've talked about Ohtani. I think particularly if they kind of make a move to the way they use him, and let's say he turns more into an everyday DH or an everyday right fielder type of thing, whether he stays in LA, stays in the American League, I think you could have Ohtani versus Guerrero quite a few times in the next handful of years, coming down
Absolutely.
to the AL MVP, and that shit's fun, man. Like those
Right.
races down to the end are always fun between 2 or 3 guys.
And
Like,
and
it's
Marcus
fun to
Simeon
watch.
wasn't far behind Guerrero Jr. either. Like Marcus Simeon had himself a year.
Yeah,
And
sneaky.
for two right,
Yeah.
but for 2 Blue Jays to have MVP type seasons and for them to finish fourth
and a pitcher to
like,
win probably the
the
Cy
Cy
Young.
Young. Like what happened? I don't get it. I don't get the
Toronto
Blue Jays.
got good all of a sudden.
But they
I'll
didn't.
tell you what happened.
Like,
They play in the American
border.
League East. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
They play the Red Sox, the Yankees, and Rays 16, 17, 18 times a year. I mean, that's hard. Not to mention,
That's not
that
fair.
team was put in a tough position. They're playing in how many different home stadiums, traveling.
Right.
Like that's just everyone else is kind of back to normal this year.
Yeah.
All the other teams are back at home with their fans, and it feels like a normal baseball year, except the Blue Jays.
Right.
You know,
they
like,
were in Dunedin, they were in Buffalo, then they finally went to
just
Toronto in August?
Yeah.
Like,
But they go to Toronto and they don't really have fans, and it's just different. And it's just everyone else is back to normal, and they're not. It's just tough.
Yeah, I
agreed.
So for Vlad, for Simeon, for Robbie Ray to put those numbers up with all that shit going on as well, kind of even more impressive.
Yeah,
it's challenging. So my choice is NL MVP. I agree with Soto. I agree with you, Sean, on Soto. I think his season was ridiculous, and he is a kid. I mean, if I was a teen dad, he could be my son. He's obscenely young. So I think what's scary is he's only getting started. But I do feel, to your point, Nick, I do feel like this is the writers' popularity contest. Ever since they put Bryce Harper's picture on Sports Illustrated at 16 years old, there's been a pressure for him to show up. These writers almost have like a need for him to win something. I feel like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're going to give it to him because they need to look right. So that's my conspiracy theory.
I just love that Washington shipped him out and then they go on and win a World Series.
I know it's like the Red Sox shipping out Nomar and then winning. I mean, sometimes you got to take the franchise player out because they're the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, so I think Soto is deserving of it. I think Harper has a really good chance to win it. My conspiracy theory is the writers need him to win it, so we'll see. In the American League, I'm actually not picking Ohtani. I'm picking Guerrero Jr. When you look at the numbers, the guy hit 311 to the 257 Ohtani hit, 48, 111. I mean, he was better in every statistical category offensively that there is. Yeah, Ohtani pitched a little bit. Does anybody care? I don't. But when you look at that Blue Jays team, that Blue Jays team was the offensive force that it was, and guys like Simeon and them were able to have better seasons, I think, because he was such a calming force in that lineup. Everybody knew if I didn't do it, that's all right. Vlad will pick me up. And that lineup was just absolutely tailored around him. And
let me ask you this.
There were times he just carried them.
Hypothetical question. There's no way we can prove it, but you take Ohtani off the mound. Let's say you just take the offensive numbers, not adding the pitching, not adding anything like that, and you keep both lineups the same, but you switch them. How many RBIs do you think Ohtani has? He plays in the same spot of the lineup. He hits the same part of the order. This dude had 100 with like a double A lineup, not even triple A lineup. Now, not to take anything away from Vlad, the 311 to 311, like your batting average is your batting average, but RBIs are just solely indicative of the people in front of you getting on base. Now you still have to come through and hit the hit, but to hit 257 but still have 100 dingers, 100 RBIs, it might as well be like 200 RBIs. Like to me, that's such a crazy number because of how just ineffective the rest of that offense is in LA.
I think a full-time Ohtani probably hits 50, drives in a $120, and hits probably 20 or 30 points higher. But we don't have a full-time Ohtani. So based on what we have,
I agree.
Based on what we have in front of us, I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is way more valuable to what happens in Toronto than Ohtani is to the basement-dwelling Angels.
And it's an offensive award. Let's be honest. Like
If it was most outstanding player, I'd give it to Ohtani. That was an incredible season, but he's not the most valuable. He's a really important guy on a team that's terrible. So it's like being the tallest midget. It doesn't. It's just not. It doesn't create value. You're not changing the outcome of that team. They're going to suck with or without him.
But you're comparing a team that finished last in the American League West to a team that finished fourth in their division.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it's a much better division.
Yeah.
But it's not like Vlad's playing on a team that went to the American League Championship Series, lost in 7 games, and he carried he had a great season. But we're talking about two guys that had 2 really good seasons on 2 teams that didn't make the playoffs. I mean, it's not like we're comparing one guy that won 115 games and he carried that team.
Yeah.
Well, the Blue Jays missed the playoffs by a game.
I agree.
And the Angels missed it by about 3 seasons.
35. I know.
They were out of it July 4th.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, when you look at it, I mean, it's one team finished last, one team finished second to last.
Yeah. Well, and then on the same end to your argument, Sean, you got a guy in Vlad Guerrero who's hitting 60 points higher and all this, facing the Red Sox, Blue Jays, and Rays. 18 times apiece. When you look at strength of schedule, if we're going to go like college football style, Vladimir Guerrero is playing 3 times a more difficult schedule than Ohtani, who's playing all the puffs in the West.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the 311 for Vlad is
freakish.
For a guy that hits with that power to hit 311 is really impressive.
What I love watching him hit because even the base hits are loud. Like there's no dinkers or little floaters in the outfield. Everything he hits is hard and it's loud. I would not want to be an infielder when he's up. I'd be scared to death.
He swings from his ass on every swing.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable. It's like, dude, take a pitch off. Like, I don't it doesn't
One
matter.
speed.
Doesn't matter. Everything.
Yeah.
Like, so you can swing that violently every time and still hit 311. I mean, if he gets it, if he wins it, it's deserving. I mean, it's not like he's not deserving of the award.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think you've got 2 guys that have great cases for it.
Yeah. I just don't think, again, going back to the writers and the writers are the writers. Like, I usually don't agree with them, but they're going to go with the favorite, right? And Ohtani's clearly the favorite, right? Just because of what he did. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you with Guerrero at all, but.
No, I think when you look at the pure baseball pick, it's Guerrero and Soto. When you look at the sexy pick, it's Ohtani and Harper.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how do the writers feel when they get up in the morning, they vote.
Yeah. All right. Rookie of the years, real quick. I picked Jonathan India from the Reds. He had 269, 21 homers, 69 RBIs. And then Arozarena from the Rays. I mean, I know he kind of busted on the scene last playoffs with those 9 bombs. I mean,
he's like a rookie plus.
Yeah. And then, I mean, he hit 274. I expected more power numbers out of him. You know what I mean? Like, he only hit 20 home runs. He hit 9. He hit 9 in 2 weeks. It's like,
he got started. Didn't he get started late? It took him a while to get that first.
Yeah, slow start.
Absolutely.
With the way he ended last year in the World Series loss, I think everyone was expecting just the power to just pick right up. It took him a while to get that going.
Well, and that's usually the case, right? When somebody comes up, the baseball comes in cycles, right? So they rake at the beginning. The pitchers learn how to throw to the hitters, and now the hitters have to go through a tough slump and then, readjust to hitting a slider that's low and away instead of just getting fastballs in the inside part of the plate. So, but I mean, that kid's ridiculous. Like, he's all over the place all the time.
I'm not sure that I had the same 2 guys for the Rookie of the Year. I don't know, especially in the National League. Like, I don't know who else really has a case.
No.
I mean, you could try and make an outside looking in case, but the rest of it's just like, it's him. It's Jonathan. It's him. I mean, So, Arozarena, I mean, it's probably the right pick. I hate that he's considered a rookie. I know technically he is. Like, I hate that. Like, I don't know. But I do think those are the 2. I don't think there's much surprise there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had the same picks. I originally I thought it was going to be Adolis Garcia with the Rangers. He kind of tailed off down the stretch and was a little up and down, but I picked Arozarena. I actually think Wander Franco may end up being the better player long term. but I definitely
Wander
think
Franco
Arena's
is
off to a better start.
Probably
disgusting.
already the better player.
He is disgusting.
Yep. He's just a different player, but he's amazing.
I would take him over Rosarena right now. If I just start obviously shortstop and all that, I get
Sure.
that. But I mean, I already think he's a better player.
Yep.
Yeah, he's crazy. I mean, major league debut, he takes Erod deep. Like, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah, no big deal. Game's not too big for him.
Jeez, man. Yeah, he's the real deal. That kid's legit. Manager of the year. Who wants to take that one?
I'll start on this one. I picked. I like Scott Service in Seattle. I think that everybody thought the Rays were going to be good. Calling Kevin Cash manager of the year is like calling water wet. He was gonna have a good team. They were always going to be good. They were likely the AL East winner. It's no surprise they won. I don't understand the hype around Kevin Cash. I love the Rays organization and what they do, but that's not Kevin Cash's managing. That's how they built the team. I like Service in Seattle, and I like Kapler in San Fran, because who here thought the Dodgers weren't just going to like cakewalk into the playoffs this year? I mean, that Giants team was probably 15 games better than anybody would have ever predicted.
The same thing with the Mariners, right? Who expected the Mariners to even compete this year? They were one game out of the wild card. I mean, that for whatever he did in Seattle, like, again, right? AL West. So it really is a weak division, but yeah, I had those two as well. I mean, Gabe Kapler with the Giants this year, there's no doubt about that one. But yeah, I had Scott Service for the Mariners too. I mean, no one expected the Mariners to be there. So, and we talked about, like, Alex Cora still has the stink on him, so he's not gonna get it. No one from the Dusty Baker not gonna get it just because he's an Astros manager. So I mean, I think that's the right. And like you said, like, I can't stand Kevin Cash. I hate that he is all analytics. He doesn't use the eyeball test at all.
He's a
Hate
robot.
that. It killed me, like, last year when Blake Snell was clearly dominating the Dodgers. I mean, like, even my wife that doesn't watch baseball was like, wow, he's doing really well. And it's like, yeah, well, he just got taken out. It's like,
I love how you're not letting your heart come into this, Nick. I think it's very good not to let your emotions come into you.
I just can't. Like, I understand it, but, and I know it's not going anywhere, but I can't deal with that. Yeah. I hate it.
I like Scott Service as the pick. I still think Kevin Cash, though. Like, how do I
move from podcast?
Yeah, delete.
I'm not equating Kevin Cash to. I'm not saying he's the Bill Belichick of Major League Baseball, but for like, Belichick could have won Coach of the Year for years, talking about looking at, yes, he's got the greatest quarterback of all time, yes, but he would piece together. He would lose assistants after assistants, year after year, because other teams are pilfering his assistant coaches. They're pilfering his players. He's bringing new guys in and playing them right away because he's losing starters year after year, and they still win 11, 12, 13 games. Yep. Just because the Rays were supposed to win the division, I was impressed with the way that the Red Sox started hot. The Yankees were slow, but then the Yankees came on, and the Rays never panicked. There was a good chunk of time where the Rays were in third place of the division. Yeah. A good chunk of time. They just didn't panic. They just did what the Rays do. Like, yes, the front office deserves a ton of credit for putting that team together, developing the players, all that being said. But Kevin Cash has a definite calming effect on this team. And the ability to just say to the boys, hey, we got 106 games left. We got 85 left. We got 74. Let's just calm down. Just play our game. We're a good team. We're a very good bullpen. We will be in games. And they show up and they just win. And, like, I think that outlasted, and they won the division with 100 wins, 98 wins, 100 wins, something along that, right? I mean, it's just that's a good baseball team. But just because they're good, I do think the manager deserves a lot of credit. But I also wouldn't be surprised if the Seattle guy gets it too, because they were one game out of the wild card. That team was supposed to finish, like, they were supposed to threaten LA for the bottom of that division.
Yeah.
So, and Gabe Kapler, it's got to be it. I just wish the postseason would be taken into account, because I love this Snitker guy. I love this Snitker guy. And I love how he's just openly not necessarily anti-analytics, but I'm willing to put those on the back burner for my feel for this team. And I love that. And I know it's supposed to be a regular season award, but so he's not going to get it for what the regular season that they had, but it's probably Kapler, which I think is, it's the right pick. That team was.
If anyone gets an award, it's the GM for the Braves right there. The GM, he's like GM of the year, no doubt, because what he did with Acuna going down and getting, for sure.
And I don't think the Braves get enough love for what they went through this year. You lose Acuna, the face of the franchise. He and Freddie Freeman are, the elder statesman and the young up and coming guy. You've got your, the heart of your order goes down, and you go off and pull 4 trades at a time. People are going, why are you going to get these guys? Right. And then, so he goes and buys these groceries, Snitker puts it together and it works. They make the playoffs. They're in the World Series where they shouldn't be, but they're not getting nearly enough credit for what they did to be where they are, given everything they faced.
Yeah.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah. Picking up Soler, Peterson, Rosario. Goodness gracious.
Where would they be without those guys?
First step out of the World Series, Soler. Thank you. Boom. Crawford boxes gone.
And what's amazing is how that team came together. And quite honestly, if they hadn't made those trades, they missed the playoffs. They could have all said, "Oh, boo-hoo, we lost Acuna. It wasn't our year."
Right.
But that team went, "Nope. We'll grab another few guys. We'll slap them on the field." Snitker made it work, and here they are. And there's somebody's got to give them credit for that. They may not get an award for it, but they got to get credit for it.
Definitely.
I agree.
All right, moving on to rounding third. So this was our 2 questions of the week. We had I put out, what do you think your best starting 5 is pitching, and then who had the craziest stance or craziest windup, and craziest windup. So we did have. Does somebody want to take it first, or we want to do viewers first?
Yeah, let's go to the ones that were submitted. So we did have we had Joe Auger submitted his rotation to us. You got Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson, Walter Johnson, Nolan Ryan, Jacob deGrom.
Love my Jacob deGrom being in there.
I know.
Love it.
I feel like it's early for an all-time list, but all right, I'll take it.
I love
it. Combined 2 runs in a 5-game series right there, maybe.
Oh yeah,
I assume the exercise here is we're taking each guy in their prime, right? That's the exercise.
Oh yeah, for
we're
sure.
We're not taking dead Walter Johnson right now, right?
No, although he might win.
Might take him.
Yeah, he might win a few games. You might be shocked. I'll take Nolan Ryan right now, for sure. Hard to argue with any of these picks. And then we also had Ken Sawyer put a rotation in. A little different slant here. Certainly not quite as many true power arms, but boy,
but again, you can't. Yeah, you can't. Are they all 300-game winners? Gibson might not be.
No, I think you got 3 300-game winners there, but yeah, still, they're going to get outs.
And absolutely, 100%. So I went with. I got Cy Young, 511 wins, and a guy that pitched every single day, 200 pitches, like I said last week. Walter Johnson, 110 shutouts in his career. Nolan Ryan, what? Sorry?
Is that good? 110?
Maybe. I don't know.
Is that good?
It's almost like a full season, but not quite.
Yeah.
Well, it might have been back then. It might have been 2 full seasons.
Yeah, right.
Nolan Ryan, 7 no-nos, most strikeouts. Bob Gibson, and then Sandy Koufax. So Sandy Koufax in his final 4 years, 1.86 ERA, 4 no-hitters, and 1,228 strikeouts in 4 years.
Freakish.
In 4 years. Crazy. And yeah, I gotta put a lefty in there somewhere, but those are my 5.
Yeah, so I took Clemens, he was on my all-time team last week. Nolan Ryan, Randy Johnson, Greg Maddux, and Sandy Koufax. So I dropped a couple lefties in there, some power right-handers. It's when you look at that list of pitchers you could pick, it's almost overwhelming. How many you want to take?
There's no wrong rotation.
No.
I had, and in no particular order though. I had Pedro, Nolan Ryan. Pedro, Nolan Ryan, Randy Johnson. I literally was looking at it 5 minutes ago. Steve Carlton was my second lefty. And then I had.
I'm assuming you had DeGrom, right? You had your boy?
No. I that's why I made the comment. Like, I love DeGrom being in there, but like in a rightful, I can't put him on there. Like I want to, but like I can't.
I get it.
I mean, he's no, I had Maddox.
Yeah,
Maddox,
good choice.
Maddox, and it's always like my 5A was like Gibson, but I put the guy in there that can throw it through a fucking lifesaver from 60 feet, 6 inches away. Like, how do you not, like, watching that guy pitch off the mound was, like, it was funny to watch him do it.
Yeah.
Like, how is he doing that? Like, you
It's
just
crazy.
can't but laugh. He was so precise, so dominant, but dominant power-ups. Like,
Right.
dominance back to power-ups, blow you away. And this guy just barely touched 90. He was frustrating but awesome at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he made a mistake, it got killed. He didn't have that margin for error, but man, did he not make any
Right.
mistakes. Oh. So when you look at all the submissions we did get, our most common choices, except for Nick, who ruined our streak here, Nolan Ryan was on every submission, every viewer submission. Nolan Ryan was on it. Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, and Greg Maddux were all on all but one. So we had definitely had 4 names here that we kept seeing pop up. Hard to argue,
Right.
why you wouldn't see those guys on just about every list.
So I've had one submission on my page, and it was Roy Halladay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the last playoff no-hitter you're ever going to see with this stupid analytics stuff. You're never going to see another playoff no-hitter.
No.
But I mean, he was the real deal, dude. I mean,
yeah.
He was. Yeah.
He was fun to watch.
Yeah.
He had,
and
when you had Halladay and Cliff Lee and those guys pitched fast, they threw strikes, they just blew through lineups.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then the other one, it was Koufax, so that was before mine. But yeah, everybody else was, pretty unanimous on those.
All good choices.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's move on to craziest stance, craziest windup, and craziest batting stance.
So to kick it off, we did have so Joe also submitted stance and windup. He picked Jeff Bagwell and Dontrell Willis. Bagwell is one of my all-time favorites. With basically that crazy crouch, and he didn't step towards the pitcher, stepped away from him, which violates all rules of hitting. And then Dontrell Willis, who is just flailing arms and legs.
So good.
And then we had from Ken too. We had Kevin Youkilis, which is one of my favorite stances too, with the spread hands and all the movement. And then Juan Marichal, which was another wild windup, just flailing arms and legs.
Yeah, his leg was like up above his head, dude. It was insane.
Oh, I don't know how he didn't fall over.
Or pop a hamstring, dude. My legs would just blow apart.
Imagine doing that. Imagine throwing 100 pitches like that,
and probably never losing their balance. Like,
no,
forget that, man.
I bet that guy was icing his legs more than his shoulder, though.
Oh, for sure. What do you got, Sean?
The Nomo delivery windup was just
awesome.
When I was 8 years old, watching, I'm like, what is this? Like, why is he doing? Like, this is crazy. Like, Nomo, as a kid, I couldn't wrap my brain around it.
Right.
It still is one of the crazy ones. Oh, we got a video of him here,
Yeah, just in case anybody
Strikes
forgot.
on you, he goes to his forkball, which is his bread and butter pitch to try and strike you out. He also has a curveball, but the fork is what makes him special. That's the one he strikes you out on. It's been compared to Brian Harvey of the Florida Marlins.
It's so ridiculous.
Strike 3 ball.
I mean, can you even imagine facing that?
You saw his full last name. You saw the number. You saw everything. Like it.
Yeah.
Imagine being a right-handed, but a hitter, but a right. Like you can't pick the ball up. Like how do you?
No.
Like he must have been so difficult to figure out.
Yeah.
And
you
then
got no idea where it's coming from.
Yeah, no idea. And then, not to mention, he's got those nasty pitches too. It's not like he was a bum. Like he was a really good pitcher in his own right. So he would have that was a tough one. And then batting stance, Mickey Rivers. You guys remember him for the Yankees?
Oh, jeez.
In like the 70s, he'd like wiggle his ass at you. Like he'd get way down on that crouch and wiggle his. I thought that was hilarious. So that was my stance.
Yeah,
that's a good one. All right. So for a pitcher, I also had Nomo. I when he was at the Red Sox and threw that no hitter, I loved watching him pitch because
Amazing.
he was frustrating to watch. Every pitch took like an hour for him to deliver it. He was the
Yeah.
slowest pitcher on the planet, and literally with all that motion, you never knew where the ball was coming out of. And I used to love when they'd give you like the screen from or the camera from behind home plate, so you actually see what it looks like. It was just the craziest thing to watch. And then my batting stance is Tony Batista. I've never seen anything quite
This
as
is
strange.
so good. Tony Batista is amazing.
Yeah, so
man.
let's flip to Batista here.
Yes.
At the plate, at a fly ball to Spencer in right field, and that fly ball
This
in this
is
situation
so
tied the ball
ridiculous.
game.
Just
Batista awaits the pitch from Roger Clemens. A delivery to Tony. Fly ball,
Dude.
well hit the center field.
Dude, off
Throwing
Roger
back is
Clemens?
Williams.
yeah.
To the
Dude,
warning
what?
track, to the wall. Grand slam, home run.
I love
Tony
that.
Batista.
That ball was hit a mile, and he was barely at first base.
Oh yeah. He also ran incredibly slow too, for the record.
Yeah, so good.
I could only
But-
imagine what my dad would have said if I got up to the plate and stood like that. Like, what are you doing?
I can tell you, as a
Unbelievable.
pitcher, I would have thrown the first pitch in his belly button just because it would have annoyed me looking at that
Oh.
stance.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
Just like it looks like he's not even like hitting. Just
No.
like
Just,
But then,
what are
like,
you
he does
doing?
but then he does the lean in without stepping. It's like,
right.
just once you do the lean in, you might as well bring the front foot in.
Yeah,
I
crazy.
can't imagine trying to sync all that movement up to a 95 mile
Right.
per hour fastball.
I mean, obviously it was a timing mechanism and it worked for him.
Oh.
My word.
Dude, I wouldn't be able to do that off a tee.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah.
Like forget
No,
trying to hit 95.
You know, Tony Bautista hitting was like the equivalent to Happy Gilmore on the golf course. It was the
Yeah.
swing we all tried to recreate, but none of us could do it.
No, yeah, right.
So my craziest stance was Julio Franco. I mean, his was classic, just straight over the top.
up over
And
there.
I mean, he hit till he was what, 50? He played till he was like
At
50?
least.
Yeah.
At least.
I mean, Julio Franco is great.
This was his final big league hit.
Franco's going to get a nice hand.
And he's got to be what,
We have
48
local
in this?
1991 batting champions
Oh, yeah.
in the ballpark and in a Braves uniform.
The 0-2. Lace to right, base hit.
I don't know if that was late.
Johnson around third. They're going to send him. Hermita's throw to the plate way high. Run scores.
Yeah.
He's up on the announcer saying that was laced to right field.
Yeah, it
It
wasn't
was
quite
a,
laced.
It was a bloop single.
But he had that incredibly long bat and those long arms, and he used to love to just reach and hit stuff off the plate and dump it into right field all the time.
Yeah. Then my windup is Carter Capps. So for those of you that do not know who Carter Capps is, when he came up, he's a relief pitcher.
He was a reliever.
Yeah, he was a reliever, and he was actually debated for a long time because he would start on the rubber and hop off with his right foot and then deliver to home plate. Oh, and by the way, he'd throw triple digits.
Yeah.
So like, as you'll see in this video, not so much in the Seattle one, but if you fast forward it to the Miami part, you can really see it.
Davis strikes out again. The
There it
fourth
is.
time tonight. The 61st time this year.
57.
He like hops and then
Back-to-back
delivers. So
Ks to
weird.
begin his out.
Just incredibly strange to watch.
Yeah,
And as a hitter, it must feel like he's like right on top of you after he makes that little jump towards you.
it has to. And like
Yeah, but
we
again-
said, it throws your timing off for sure.
Right, exactly. We're
Oh, yeah.
talking about timing. I mean, you're starting your swing and he's hopping, get that. And that slider was pretty good too. I mean, you talk about the 98, 99 fastball. And
Yeah.
he was a tough one. And I know I told you guys before, I saw him, Miami came up to Boston years ago when he was on the Marlins. And I ended up seeing him. He come in for a game in like maybe the 8th or the 7th or 8th inning. And I was kind of behind home plate. So to see it was very funky. Like to see it like in person with the velocity that he would come in with, but that kind of like that hop, it was very funky.
Yeah,
Bogarts
weird.
waits a double into right center, of course, but it was funky.
So some of our submissions real quick, Euclid, obviously, Gary Sheffield, you know, Craig Counsell. I mean, Craig Counsell was
Craig
like
Counsell.
way
Yeah,
up.
that's a good
Yeah,
one.
he was way up there. That
Um,
was a good one.
Joe Morgan. Joe Morgan had like the elbow
Oh, the
and
chicken
like,
wing.
yeah, and then Chuck Knobloch. Chuck Knobloch
I
had his
loved
bat
it.
straight out, I think, behind him. And some of the windups, El Duque, Orlando Hernandez, he had the really high knee upward to his
And
ear.
he'd shove his glove like down to his ankle, and
Yeah, he
it
was weird.
And
Johnny
he'd throw sidearm 3/4 over the. He came at
Yeah.
you from everywhere.
Louis Tiant was my second. It was between him and Hideo Nomo, and I don't know if he's on that list, but Louis Tiant was up there too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good one.
Johnny Cueto, just because he does the little shimmy.
Cueto, yep.
Yeah,
he showed. You got his full backside too.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then sometimes he wouldn't. Sometimes he'd take the step and then deliver right home.
Pitch. Right.
And then I mean that's pretty much for those.
One of my favorite hitters of all time to watch, and my favorite player of all time was Nomar, and his stance wasn't abnormal, but all the movement with the gloves and the toes and the swirling of the glove. I mean, he just never stopped, and it must have been obnoxious on the mound getting set, and this guy just won't stop moving.
And it would have drilled him in the ear hole, dude. I just can't. Like, dude, get in the box. Like, stop. Get in the box.
Yeah, let's go. Let's play.
This game's it's in the third inning. It's already been 4.5 hours, bud. Get in the box.
Yeah, if you had Nomar at the plate and Dice K on the mound, you were there all night. Settle in.
Yeah. Awesome.
Got a couple of Shaughnessy's on here with me. Relax about the timing of the game. That's what's great about baseball. Is it can last. Like, who cares?
All right. I'm sorry. I love baseball. You know. Come on.
Unbelievable. It's all Dan Shaughnessy.
I love the timeless nature of baseball.
It's great.
Yeah. It is. I don't want a pitch count. I don't want a pitch clock and all that stuff, though. No, I agree. Hate that. Like, I don't want a pitch clock. Like, get rid of it. No, don't even think about that. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, I hate the limitations on changing pitchers, and it takes some of the strategy out of the game. And I don't like what they're doing to speed the game up. But honestly, I think TV is also a big problem. The breaks between innings last too long, and MLB won't address why the game is longer because it's its revenue generation that makes it longer.
Right, but when each commercial breaks 3 minutes, right?
Yeah,
it's TV's the big reason for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's I really don't think it's because they want all these. I don't know. They want you to feel like, oh, young kids don't want to sit down and watch a 4-hour, 3.5-hour baseball game. Like, if it's a good baseball game, if they like baseball, they will sit down and watch the game. Now, another problem we have, which is a different discussion, starting games at 8:30 at night is a problem. Like, you can't start games at 8:30 at night because that's not necessarily the length of game. That's just like a regular baseball game gets over at 1 a.m. Like, you kids that go to school,
that's awful.
People go to work. Like, that's insane. Like, that needs to be addressed.
But you got to start it late so the West Coast can watch it after they're out of work.
Right. And that's the reasoning, and that's fine. And I don't agree with it, but like, I get it, and that's fine.
Right.
But that's why young kids are not watching the full World Series game. It's not because they last 3.5 hours. You start them at 8:15, 8:30 at night.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. We're going to move on to heading home, which is our hot stove and hot topics, and we got a few this week. The Mets need a general manager badly, to say the least. They have interviewed everybody. I think they've even interviewed a couple cricket general managers at this point because no one seems to want this job, like, at all. The Cardinals, the Brewers, the Cubs have all turned it down. Like Billy Beane, Theo Epstein completely have turned this down. Is there something behind the scenes that we don't know about, like, other than who was the previous GM, Sean? Didn't he have like a whole bunch of issues?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Wasn't it? So is there something else behind the scenes that we don't know about?
You talking Sandy Alderson, or are you talking the actual GM?
No. There was the dude that had was like the Jared Porter was the guy's name.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
the guy. He had the sexually explicit text messages and all that shit. Yeah.
Yep.
Jared Porter.
So is there just a big mess in the front office and nobody wants to deal with it? Because the Mets aren't a bad team. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that?
I don't know, man. I think it's got to go. Like, there's got to be something with this Steve Cohen guy, the new owner. The guy wants to throw a ton of money around and bring in all these great names. And he says all the right things. Like, he, as an owner, like, he says all the right things. There's got to be something in these private meetings that he's having with all these people that he wants to bring in, where they're just like, I'm not feeling the vibe for the Mets. Like, it's almost like if I'm Theo, I'm a Hall of Fame GM as it is. Like, I am. Right. I broke the curse in Boston. I then went directly to Chicago, broke that curse. Like, I'm getting in the Hall of Fame. I'm getting it. Billy Beane, I think, is probably doesn't have the title, but he's got the longevity, the ability to take a small market team and really build it up
He'll
there.
go into.
I don't know if I fully agree with it, but that could be another discussion. But he's making the case for it too. Just two guys for as an example. Like, I'm not trying to go to that organization where if things go wrong and if they start slow, which they probably will, it's all going to be dumped on my lap. Like, you have to go in. Like, if I'm one of those guys and the job's offered to me, I'm taking it under one very specific condition, and it's that I build it my way. Like, I don't succumb to this owner that just wants to spend a ton of money all the time. I'm doing it the way that I want to do it. He brought in Tebow. Yeah, exactly.
This is the organization that brought in Tim Tebow. Don't forget. Great point by Doug.
If I'm taking the job, I'm doing it my way. And something tells me that Steve Cohen and these guys are not giving them full control. And if I'm not going in knowing that when it goes poorly, it's going to get dumped on my lap. Like, why would you take that job?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Mets GM job. That you're the redheaded stepchild to the Yankees. You're New York's number 2 team. You probably always have been. Probably always will be. Great media market, but you don't have the same fan base the Yankees pull from. You've got Cohen, who's a bit of a wild card. He's proven to be a bit volatile with his tweeting and his random blow-ups at press conferences, and he's very opinionated and from what I've read is quite involved too, and actually has some GMs concerned that he's going to meddle. And then you get Sandy Alderson, who's kind of the steadying force there, well-respected guy, but another guy in his 70s, old school. I think when you look at the GMs coming up, guys like Theo, these guys change the game, getting into the analytics and getting into the advanced scouting. And these guys like Alderson, I don't even think those guys understand what that is. I think you've got a massive cultural problem inside that front office with the old school regime and the new school trying to push it out. And then you got an owner that might be too involved. I look at the Yankees, who have a similar situation where you've got the Steinbrenner family, which talk about meddling. That's what they do. But Cashman has survived because he's got a budget like nobody else but the Dodgers, and B, I think he's got the respect of the fan base that he's been able to get away with some stuff. But that's another guy who I think is probably not long for that organization, but he's found a way to survive in New York.
Cashman is the king of other people taking the fall for Brian Cashman issues.
Oh, yeah.
He's the king. I mean, this guy is year after year, for the past 10 years, the Yankees have underperformed. The money that they spend, the guys that they sign, they should be competing for titles year in and year out. And they're either barely making the playoffs or they're getting bounced in the wild card game or whatever the case may be. And the manager gets fired, the coaching staff gets fired, and people and I don't know how he does it. I don't know whose naked pictures he's got. I don't know what kind of blackmail information this dude has. But for some reason, he just seems to kind of just Homer Simpson back in the bushes there. And everyone else kind of gets blamed for it. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we talked about it. This guy has the exact same hitter for like 4 spots in a row in the lineup. Mm-hmm. And like no one's addressing why are we signing the same guy?
Right.
Yeah, he's found a way to survive in New York by kind of setting himself up in a way. And he plays both sides. He plays the owner side. He plays the player side of it. And I think he's a guy that's been kind of a chameleon. I think with the Mets, you're not going to get that kind of leeway. You're not going to get that kind of respect. You've got an owner who's tired of being the second act, and you've got an old school front office. You got some cultural issues probably existing in there. You've got the stink of the guy you're replacing in Porter. They unloaded the acting GM pretty quick. I mean, it's been a lazy Susan. It's been a revolving door of people coming in and out of that place, and nobody's ever stuck.
I think the owner has to the meddling, and I don't know how much, how little. I think he needs to be the calming force and say, you know what, like this is not something we talk about in other sports. Like you draft a quarterback number 1 overall, right? Like you have to play him right away because that's what you have to do. It's almost like the same mindset with the Mets. Just like we have to bring in the GM that's going to win the World Series. Like that's not how it works. Like you can't bring in the guy that now next year is just going to win the World Series. Not how it works. You're not going to find that guy or girl. Like you're not going to find that person. Like you have to bring somebody in that you are going to take a step back. You don't have to be 100% removed, but you got to let them run things the way that they're going to run things. They are the general manager of that organization. Like you have to let them do their job. And if you can agree on the way that they want to do it, you can still be involved. But you have to understand it's going to, and the fans have to understand, and the media's got to, like, it takes a little bit of time. Like it's not, and the Mets are not in a position where they're one move away from winning a World Series. Like the Mets need pieces.
Yeah.
No, there's no instant success next year. You've got to actually bring somebody in and commit to a 3 to 5 year plan to rebuild that organization. It's not a win next year scenario, and if you don't, you're out of here. They've been doing that for too long and it's never worked. That's when they make these panic moves like Lindor and never actually set the lineup right around him, and then blame him for why they're struggling. And you've got the Mets who are booing their fans back, and it's just such a bad situation.
I mean, Javier Baez shows up for like a cup of coffee and he's now shitting all over the Mets fans. It's like, dude, you've been there for 2 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
that's not.
The culture there needs to change. And the whole thing was doomed from the start with the Jared Porter thing in the front office, and then it was right around the same time Carlos Beltran's supposed to be the manager, and then he gets caught up in this Astros thing, and then he doesn't even get to manage a game. He's out. They bring in Luis Rojas, who people are like, yeah, the players really enjoyed him, but you watch games, like, does he even know how to manage? Like, I don't even know if he knows what's going on. Like, the whole thing was doomed. Like, they need a stabilizing, calming presence in the whole organization, not just the clubhouse, but the whole organization.
Everywhere, top to bottom.
So speaking about finding a new piece, the Padres pulled Bob Melvin from the A's for nothing. They gave them no compensation, so they just traded for him, but got nothing in return. So first of all, why? And second of all, does Bob Melvin make a difference with this Padres team?
I think Bob Melvin's a really good manager.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I love the Padres. I really do. I like the attitude, the swag, everything about the young players. I know. I love them. I love everything about them. They're so much, fun to watch. I think time will tell. I don't what much different from last year does Melvin have to do?
Yeah.
That's a good baseball team. That's a talented, good baseball team.
And their starting rotation is ridiculous, or it should be.
I think the biggest issue he might have is we have to temper them a little bit because you play 162 games. You have to temper them a little bit. You have to keep their emotions in check, but you can't be the wet blanket because the way that they play is so exciting and fun and loud. That's how they play. That's how those guys get up to play. You have to give them the ability to get out and play that way, but you also have to be able to temper them for a full season. I think that's probably going to be his biggest challenge, but I certainly think he can do it. I think he's a good manager.
Yeah. No, I think Bob Melvin's a great manager. He's a stabilizing force. I think the Padres, to your point, Sean, are a great team. Talent-wise, on paper, they might be one of the best in the league. They just couldn't put it together because they're volatile. You've got a lot of big personalities competing for the spotlight, competing for the headline. You got Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis screaming at each other in the dugout, and there's a lot of maturing that needs to happen there. I mean, people forget also how young Machado still is, but you got a lot of young, talented guys, and Melvin will not put up with that. He's going to be the kind of guy when you loaf to first base, you will watch the rest of the game from the bench, kind of like Snitker did to Acuna. We don't play ball like that here, son. Take a seat. And that's the kind of stuff that Bob Melvin will do that the Padres desperately need. They need that guy who's going to come in, who's going to stabilize the team, mesh the personalities, and in some cases be almost a father figure in a way where he's going to tell these young guys, we don't play that way. This is what we do here. This is the big leagues, kid. Grow up. And I think if that team can mature and gel, they could be dangerous. But if you just got a bunch of spotlight hunting kids, it's going to continue to be a volatile nightmare in San Diego as they look at all that talent but can't win.
Their starting rotation is no joke. You got Darvish, you got Blake Snell, you got Mike Clevenger, if he can stay healthy. You got Dinelson Lamet. You have, is it Paddock? Chris Paddock still there? I mean, I think I'm missing a couple others, but I mean, they have the pieces. Their position players aren't. They got Adam Frazier at the trade deadline. I mean, goodness, Tatis was playing right field for a little bit because you had Cronenworth and Frazier. I mean, They have the pieces to be there, but again, in a tough division, now the Giants have emerged into a contender. I mean, that might be like an AL East situation where
Yep.
3 teams come out for the playoffs if the Padres can turn it around and get there.
I mean, I think Melvin is the one like that makes the difference with a team like San Diego, because I think the talent that they have, like, the Machado and Tatis, having that fight, that screaming match in the dugout, right? Like, I think a guy like Melvin, he's been around forever. He's managed a lot of different kinds of players, whether they're, excitable, energetic players, or whether they're kind of even keel players or anything in between. And I think he's going to bring this calming energy to San Diego, where it's like, hey, guys, you guys disagree? Let's talk about it. Like, let's go in the locker room in the clubhouse. We'll talk about it. Let's not have a blow up in the dugout. Like, that kind of like, just, hey, we got 162, right? Like, we got to be. We're all pulling on the same rope. Like, we're all pulling in the same direction.
I think
brings that from the jump.
Yeah.
Right.
So why did the A's get nothing for him? Do you think the A's were ready to move on from Bob Melvin? But even then, if that's the case, like, you got to get something. Get a draft pick, for crying out loud. Like, a bucket of baseballs or something.
Either Billy Bean's a terrible poker player and couldn't hide the fact they were going to let him go and he got nothing for him, or maybe they're doing Melvin a favor, realizing that they're going to continue to go their way and they want to give him a shot, to go and win. I don't. It makes no sense why you wouldn't ask for something, because I think Melvin is too valuable a piece to what they do to just let him walk away for free.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I didn't understand that at all.
All right,
But
staying in the. Oh, you got.
I was just going to say one thing I think with Melvin, and I go back to Alex Cora. I still struggle with him even being in baseball, but what Alex Cora does for the Red Sox was the perfect example was what he did with Erod. When Erod's coming off the mound about to check his watch and make a kind of a run at Correa, how Cora handles that. Just screams, "No, we don't do that." Pulls him in, pulls him close, whispers in his ear, "We don't do that here, kid." And then, kind of sets him back down. That kind of influence is what brings those young players, and that's what's been part of the A's success with Melvin, and that's going to be a big piece of the Padres' success with Melvin.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, the big thing I think Melvin's got to make sure is he's not that wet blanket, right? Like those, Tatis with the bat flips, Machado with the, excitable emotion after a home run. Like, you can't tell those guys that they can't do that, right? Like, maybe temper it down a little bit, and maybe just, we're not here to show up the other team. You can still show excitement. Like, you can still be excited about things that we do. So I think he's got to strike the right balance with that, which I think he will. I think he will. But too much of a wet blanket goes the other direction, and then they don't want to play for him. And then he's just a guy that can't get the boys going, and and that's not good either.
Yeah, huge for the Padres.
So staying in the West, but in the AL, the Seattle Mariners decided to not exercise their club option for Kyle Seager. So Kyle Seager is now a free agent. And where's the best fit for him? I'm thinking, kind of like we were talking about last week with you, Harrison, I don't think the Texas Rangers would necessarily be a bad fit for Kyle Seager. He's a proven veteran. You can put people around him. He's still serviceable at the plate. I think Texas is a decent place for him. Decent glove at third. I mean, why not?
No, I think the Mariners. I can't tell if the Mariners are going to try to make a run to sign him long term, or if they're just doing him a favor and letting him go. But I feel like he's the guy that one of those teams that's on the bubble will make a run at, and make him a really nice offer to come in and be that stabilizing force and help some young kids around him. Not that Seager's an elder statesman of the game or anything, but he's not a kid anymore. He's been around for a little while. He knows how to play at this level. He knows how to do the right thing and get ready for the game. And he could be great for a young team that needs that kind of leader by example.
Yeah, I think Seager's the guy who I wouldn't be sure. I know nothing. Like, this is not inside info. I picture it as Seattle kind of giving him we need to rebuild. Like, we were one game away from the postseason here. We weren't supposed to be. We were one game away, but this isn't the team that wins us, that goes deep into the playoffs, right? Like, they still have pieces that they need to continue to build. I wouldn't be shocked at all if it was a understanding where it was just like, hey, we're going to let you go. If that's the case, which I think it is, he's not going to Texas. Like, he's going to a team. He wants to win a
Right.
title. I mean, this is a guy who's been in the league for years. He's put his heart on the field for Seattle his entire career. Like, I think he wants to be on a team that's one piece away, or a team that's there, and maybe he plays kind of a not necessarily a bench role. That's not really, but he doesn't have to be the middle of that lineup that kind of guy, right? Like, he's just going to go and kind of play his role, but go for a team and try and go after a championship.
Does he end up in New York then?
No, I don't see. I don't know. I don't.
Where does he go?
It wouldn't shock me. I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like it's going to be. I feel like it's going to be a team like like the Rangers or like the Marlins, or it's going to be somebody that needs. He's 34. He's been in the league a dozen years. He's not done. I think of this like when Adrian Beltre went to the Rangers. That he was kind of mid-30s, stable guy who didn't necessarily want to be the guy anymore and in the spotlight, but wanted to contribute and help kind of rebuild an organization and win some games. But when you get a guy like Beltre into Texas, that's when that team started to kind of form around him. Yeah. He's going to be one of those linchpin type players that he can give you another 3 or 4 good seasons. He's not going to cost you 20 mil, 30 mil, like, a premier player might.
An interesting one I'm thinking too is, depending, and I don't know what the contract is, I'll have to look it up, but what's Chris Bryant's contract in San Francisco? If he's a free agent, I mean, if they don't, he talk about a guy that's going to demand 19, 20 million, 21. San Francisco doesn't want to pay that money. I could see Kyle Seager signing in San Francisco. I mean, it's a team that made a run. If they need a third baseman,
swap
fit
him
nicely in that lineup.
But Chris Bryant didn't play third for the Giants. Evan Longoria does. He's in the outfield.
But right, that's true. But true. And I don't know what Longoria is either. Do you know what
I don't know either. So Doug just asked who plays third base for the White Sox, but I'm pretty sure Yohan Moncada is at third and Nick Madrigal is at second with Tim Anderson at short. So the White Sox is not a place for him.
No, that
either.
Would be a good fit for him. But yeah, they've got that infield. They're still shifting around to fit in those young guys.
Yeah, and I just don't see another team that's on the bubble that needs a third baseman. I mean, that's the thing. That's why I said Texas, but
Chris Bryant's a UFA. Longoria is not. Longoria is making 19.5 next year, 13 in 2023, and then he's a UFA in 2024.
Wow. A lot of money for Longoria.
Tell me about it.
Well, but
that's where those long-term contracts bite you. You get to the back of them, you're getting nothing.
Well, that guy, Tampa paid him nothing. He got absolutely hosed in like the first 8 years of his career by Tampa. So get your money, Evan Longoria.
Yeah, go for it.
Fran, just real quick on Longoria, now that I'm looking at it, he's been in San Fran since 2018. 2018, they paid him 13.5, 2019, 14.5, 2020, 15, 2021, 18.5. Next year, 19.5, 2023, 13 million.
I call that a slow Tuesday.
Holy moly.
But yeah.
I think Seager is going to be a nice piece for somebody that's kind of on the bubble, or has somebody else they want to shift out of town. Yeah. And that he can come in and be a stabilizing force. But you look at Seager's numbers last year, and his whole approach shifted. He went from, the guy hit 212. He prioritized power for an offense that really had nothing, and became a swing from the heels hitter, which he really isn't. I think if you let him go back to his natural play style and do what he does, he could be a really, really, really solid third baseman for another few years, maybe even transition to first if he had to, and give you a handful of good years.
I'm looking at these numbers, and now I will accept nothing less than Kyle Seager in San Francisco, because Evan Longoria making the money he's making is a disaster for the Giants.
Absolutely.
In 2021, I didn't follow the Giants much. The guy hit 261, which is obviously, but he only had 46 RBIs, 66 hits.
In a team that won 106 games.
Not a difference maker anymore. He's just another guy.
No.
Absolutely.
No, they can find a way to offload him. I think Kyle Seager would fit perfectly there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Anything else before we wrap it up, boys?
I don't think so.
No, I think that was a good episode and opened up a number of topics for the future. So
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
for sure.
So thanks for listening, guys. Please like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share the podcast wherever you can. Like I said, we were up to 132 views last week, and we have 14 subscribed. We'd really like to hit the 20 mark for subscriptions, and we really appreciate you guys, your support and watching. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate you
next
guys
week.
commenting too. That was it's always good to get comments in on the
yeah,
live,
thanks
That's
everybody.
awesome.
live
Thank you
stream.
so much.
Appreciate that.
All right.
All right.
See you next week.
See you next week.
All right, boys.